All right, well, welcome to Hannity on this Super Bowl Friday. It has been a disaster of a week for your President Joe Biden, filled with bizarre gaffes and a damning special counsel report highlighting his cognitive struggles. But as per usual, the mob, the media, they race to his defense. Take a look.
I thought it was good for him to show who he is. This was not handlers. This was not pollsters. This was Joe Biden, sort of letting everybody know kind of where he's coming from and how he feels. I think that makes him seem more youthful, more engaged, more human, more relatable.
If you want to get into the age thing, because let's call it what it is. This is ageism snuck into a report clearing the person of any wrongdoing.
If someone says you're too far left, you can tack to the center. The man is 80 years old. He rides a bike.
Let me educate our friends in the mob and the media, because this is very serious. According to the special counsel's report, Biden was presented as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Now, who couldn't even remember when he served as vice president? That's what they said in this report. And asking on day one of his interview with the special counsel, quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? On day two, asking, in 2009, am I still vice president? And in what is probably the saddest part of the entire report, and it's sad, Joe couldn't remember within several years when his son Beau died. Now, these findings were so damning that the White House simply rushed Joe out to a podium way past his bedtime last night to defend his memory and obvious cognitive struggles. Well, that didn't go well. You know, I'm an elderly man and I know what the hell I'm doing. No, you don't. Take a look.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet.
Your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President.
My memory is not good. My memory is fine.
For months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
All right, here with reaction, our media guru, Fox News contributor, the one and only Joe Concha with us. I don't know what my favorites are here. I mean, ageism, or he can ride a bike, but didn't he also fall off that bike? I just have this vague memory of that. You know, I mean, all the anger, poor liberal Joe, I thought he was going to have an aneurysm this morning. He was so angry. But however, it fits the pattern. This has been going on for a long time. They have ignored it. They'll make a big deal if Trump mixes up Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris, but meanwhile is lucid for 2 straight hours in interviews that I've had with them. Let's not take that into consideration. But I guess it's a predictable reaction, right?
Sean, I mean, some of those clips you played are incredible. I mean, that CNN clip is something else. They think that he looked during that disaster of a press conference last night more youthful and more engaged. I mean, at no point in their rambling, incoherent responses, like I watched last night, were they even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this country is now dumber for having listened to that analysis. But as far as Rachel Maddow's bike argument, I mean, the real question is, can Joe Biden successfully ride a bike? I mean, we must have video of him somewhere from last summer where he actually falls down while riding a bike right in front of reporters. And Rachel's defense is just about the best unintentional comedy you'll ever see. I mean, my kids could ride a bike by the time they were 4 years old. So I'm not sure how operating, a Schwinn proves that a person is mentally fit. And remember, Rachel's supposed to be the smart one over there. She should just go back to working 1 day a week at this point. But overall, seriously, can you believe the craptastic week this president has had? I mean, it's the worst of his presidency, at least going back to the Afghanistan withdrawal. He couldn't remember, Sean, the name of Hamas. He said he spoke to Francois Mitterrand recently, who only died, almost 40 years ago. Did he get Napoleon's voicemail? How'd that go? And he also said he spoke to Helmut Kohl, the German chancellor, who died years ago as well, and said he spoke to him about January 6th. I mean, then the geniuses at the White House comm shop, they thought it was a swell idea to put Joe Biden out there hastily assembled press conference at 7:45 last night, and we saw how that went. It was Joe Biden as Grandpa Simpson, where now apparently Mexico borders on Gaza, according to our commander-in-chief. But you've been talking about this for years, Sean, and now perhaps even Democrats are finally waking up to the fact that this man should not be in office for, think about it, about 5 more years if he wins re-election. That's what we're talking about here. And this is a guy who expects to lead the country while going on more vacations than Clark Griswold. And many voters are saying, no, give us somebody else, please.
Yeah, I call it my memory is fine. I'm an elderly man. I know what the hell I'm doing. Press conference. The only one that had a decent amount of honesty in his comments was Paul Begala, saying that anybody with a functioning brain knows that it was a terrible report and presser. And when you think about it, the list of prominent names from the Obama and Clinton era are growing. I mean, you've got David Axelrod, you got Van Jones, Obama people. You got James Carville, now Begala, Clinton people. They're stating the obvious. You got Maureen Dowd at the New York Times. These are pretty prominent left-wing voices in the country that I think probably people will listen to. Are they going to take it the next step that he's not qualified to be president?
Well, that's the problem, Sean. It's like a math equation, A plus B equals C, C plus B equals A. They had the A part, which is Joe Biden should not be running for office again, when 76% of Americans in an NBC News poll just taken don't think that he has the mental fitness for the job. I mean, that is a devastating number. The problem is the B part of the equation. A, Joe should drop out, but who replaces him, right? It's like saying, all right, this quarterback can't play anymore. He's horrible. Okay, who's the backup? Is it Kamala Harris? Because if she's the emergency plan, she may end up losing 45 states if she's the nominee. I mean, that's how absolutely untrusted and unpopular she is with Democratic voters. So then you look to Gavin Newsom, I guess, maybe. I mean, look at his record in California. And then the bench from there, you tell me who backfills Joe Biden at this point. And also you tell me if Joe Biden looks like a guy who's ready to hand over the keys to the car at this point. He doesn't look like it. He thinks he could beat Donald Trump again. And he seems to be the last one to know that he has a cognitive decline.
Joe Concha, we appreciate it. Best media guy out there, not part of the blue checkmark media mob cult. That's a credit to him. All right, this week's Biden's cognitive struggles were indisputable. If you don't believe me, let's run through a few of the examples. Joe mentioned a couple. Just last night, Biden confused the president of Mexico and the president of Egypt. Take a look.
The conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate.
He also made this comment while speaking in Virginia yesterday. We didn't have time to play it with all the breaking news. Look.
Pride's returning. When I said, we pushed all these programs, I said, I'm going to be a president for everybody, whether you live in a red state or a green state. I know it drives some of you crazy that a lot of these things are happening in red states, but the Americans need help.
How many of you watching tonight live in a green state? Earlier in the week, speaking at a campaign event in Vegas, Joe recalled having that conversation with former French President Mitterrand in 2021. Only problem is he died in 1996. Take a look.
Right after I was elected, I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. And it was in the south of England. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said, you know, why, how long are you back for?
Now, this was not the only time Joe remembered having a conversation with a dead person. This week alone, during a fundraiser in New York on Wednesday, Biden reportedly claimed to have spoken to the former German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl. Well, he died in 2017. And at that 2021 G7 summit, it was actually Angela Merkel who was there. You know, look, if on a serious note in all of this, this is getting scary. Democrats are at the point where they can't deny what the world is clearly seeing. Remember, President Xi's watching, Putin is watching, Kim Jong-un is watching, and the mullahs in Iran are watching. But it seems Democrats don't have the courage to do what is right. And here's how Axios put it, quote, a former Biden aide described Democrats' dilemma. Taking the nomination away from Biden is like taking the car keys away from your parents. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. This is not about Biden's feelings. It is about being the leader of the free world. This is about his ability to be the president. Let me put it to you this way, and I'm being serious. This is not a joke, to quote Joe. Would you hire Joe Biden to manage your finances? Would you hire him, as I was asking Joe Concha, to drive your kids to school? Or what about making life-altering decisions for you? Do you think he's even capable of directing traffic at this point? What about those nice people that you meet at the door when you enter a Walmart or a Target that tell you where you can find the department that you're looking for? I don't think he'd be up to the job because I doubt he could remember where all the departments are. And by the way, this is not the Joe Biden of 2008, let alone 2019. Just imagine, what is he going to be like in 4 years from now? What is he going to be like? Here was a reaction. Fox News medical contributor Dr. Mark Siegel. To know back in 2020, and you were on this program talking about it, that he clearly was showing signs of cognitive struggles and decline. And then look at him and fast forward, 4 years later. Not only were we right, but now, like any cognitive issue, it is degenerative. You would know more about this than me, being the doctor that you are. And that means it's never going to get better, and it's only going to get worse. And it looks like we're seeing the worst part now. And that was described in this HER report.
I have a lot of ways to talk about this, and I tell you, I feel compassionate for all of this slippage if it weren't for the fact that, as you said, he has his hands on the nuclear football. And in terms of fitness is concerned, I compared him to my 100-year-old father, who, by the way, is totally with it and knew when Mitterrand died in 1996 and knew when Biden was vice president and knew when his son died. So it's not about age here. It's about mental acuity and fitness, as you say. And let me tell you what worries me the most, Sean. It's that as you lose your memory, you lose short-term memory first, as we saw in 2019-20, and I was concerned then. Now we're talking about long-term memory. That goes next, and that's more sinister, where he knows he wants to talk about the president of France, but he can't remember his name, so he sticks in an old president of France and hopes that goes over, but everybody sees that. He's trying to confabulate.
But Dr. Siegel, hang on a second. Does he really know that he's just filling in a name, or he doesn't know? I think he doesn't know, which would make it worse.
I think he doesn't know, and that's the next point I was going to get to. I agree with you. It's that you're the last to know, and Joe Concha pointed to that. You're the last to know. Everyone around you sees it, but you're defensive, and it's sad. If you weren't president, it's sad. If you're losing it, you don't want to admit it, so you get angry, and that hostility and that anger you saw last night is very typical of somebody that's showing slippage. But let me tell you the worst thing of all. Where are his doctors? How dare you not come forward? Where's the information? Where's the MRI? We've been asking for the MRI for 3 or 4 years now. We never got it. Where's the testing? Where are the doctors to say what the heck is going on here? I know what's going on. I don't even need the medical record at this point because it's so clear that if someone doesn't know, if the president doesn't know who's the president of Egypt versus Mexico, how's he going to decide on decisions that affect the Gaza war? That's clear to every American right now, but it's not about age. It's about fitness, and not just fitness to run this year. It's fitness to serve right now. And I want to hear from his physicians right now.
Dr. Siegel, thank you. In an interview with Fox News Digital today, foxnews.com, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, he made great points. He's calling on the Attorney General to either invoke the 25th Amendment if the DOJ declines to charge, saying that the report noted the elements of a crime were present. They were very clear in this report. They couldn't have been more clear. But they chose not to charge based on his mental state. Well, that's not a reason not to charge somebody. So with the growing concerns over his real cognitive ability in decline, well, it's becoming more likely that Biden will now be forced to stop his reelection campaign. So what does that mean for Democrats? Remember, according to a recent NBC News poll, only 28% of respondents had a favorable view of Kamala Harris. Earlier today, she got very angry, reacting to the special counsel's damning report, claiming that the whole thing was politically motivated. Really? Take a look.
So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts and clearly politically motivated, gratuitous.
Here with reaction, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is back with us. Look, the media, you just see how corrupt they are, how abusively biased they are. I kind of expect it out of them. I'll never expect any real news from left-wing talk show hosts that claim that they're journalists. Kamala Harris, she's in no position to challenge him. However, this report is what it is. So first, your initial reaction to it all.
Well, look, I think the very clear language and the very clear examples that are in the special report put on the table a very straightforward challenge. This is not about politics. This is about the survival of the United States. You have to worry about North Korea, Taiwan, Iran, all of the Middle East, Ukraine. And we're now told we have a president based on the Department of Justice report who really doesn't get it anymore. So at a minimum, I think the Congress should demand a cognitive test by outside sources. And if he is in fact as bad as the special attorney Herr said he is, I think they have to invoke the 25th Amendment. As much as I disagree deeply with Kamala Harris, she is at least rational, I think, and she's probably less of a danger to the country than a Joe Biden who doesn't know what's going on. Remember, he is literally the person who can start a nuclear war, or he's the person who can avoid a nuclear war by doing the right things. And everything we're seeing, he's just not there. So you don't know which staff person is making which decision, but it's clear Joe Biden isn't. And I think after yesterday, my whole opinion changed because that report, and I urge every American to read the key parts of that report, it is so bad and so clear that you can't allow this guy to be commander-in-chief, and not as a political decision, but as a matter of national survival.
You know, when the report points out that Biden has significant limitations with his memory when he was dealing with his ghostwriter in 2017 and with the interviews that they had with Herr's office in October of last year, and they said that Biden didn't remember the years he was vice president. Was I still vice president in 2009? And what about 2013? Was I vice president? He doesn't know. And sadly, didn't even remember within several years when his son Beau died. Now, that either means, and on top of it, though, he willfully retained and disclosed classified materials. So regardless of what Herr concluded here, I think it's incumbent upon Merrick Garland. I think he should either indict because they're saying he broke the law or invoke the 25th Amendment. It's got to be one or the other. From my perspective, or everything that has been investigated regarding, the weaponization of the DOJ is all proven by the treatment of Hillary and Joe versus Donald Trump.
Well, I think at a minimum, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, has to drop the trial against Trump, because if you look at everything Hillary did and did not get charged, and now you look at the very specific things that Biden did, including, by the way, his co-author erased the tapes, just as Hillary erased 32,000 emails. His co-author erased the tapes of their conversations. So it is much harder now to figure out exactly what they did talk about that was secret. And this idea that the documents happened to be in his garage next to the Corvette, but they were really okay. I mean, but I think that's secondary. Normally I would have said, this is a big deal. But I think the cognitive part is so much greater a threat to the country that we have to insist that somehow he be tested. And if he can't be tested, then I think we have to insist that they implement the 25th Amendment. I can't overstate this. Nuclear war can be a matter of minutes. The idea that this guy, particularly when he has a Secretary of Defense who goes AWOL, away without leave, for a week and doesn't even tell him. Although you have now asked the question, if he had told him, would Biden have remembered? I mean, I think this is really not funny. It's not. Woodrow Wilson had a very serious stroke, was totally incapacitated. His wife actually ran the government for about a year, but that was after World War I. It was a relatively peaceful time, and she literally would not let anyone talk to. We now have a president who has to make decisions that potentially involve nuclear war. And I think to allow that to be a person who is clearly mentally incompetent is terrifying.
I can't say it any better, and I agree with everything you're saying. Speaker Gingrich, thank you. When we come back on this Super Bowl Friday night, GOP lawmakers are sounding the alarm on Biden's cognitive decline. Even Democrats know the scare tactics are all the Biden campaign has left. We'll check in with Senator Rand Paul as we continue our coverage.
To repair the damage done by special counsel Robert Hur's explosive report on President Biden's handling of classified documents. The vice president and other top Democrats defending Mr. Biden today.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products. It's Amazon's other company, Audible. Audible pays me $8,000 to $10,000 every single month in passive income, and I'm not the only one. People like Katrina and Carla, Elena, Renee.
And framing the special counsel as a Republican prosecutor with a political agenda. Special counsel is declining to prosecute the president based on his findings that suggest the commander-in-chief is forgetful and didn't properly protect highly sensitive classified information. That report adding to concerns Mr. Biden may be too old for a second term. Meantime, in Wisconsin, folks are cleaning up after at least 2 tornadoes ripped through the region Thursday night. Strong winds damaging several homes and knocking down dozens of utility poles. Fortunately, no serious injuries were reported. I'm Kevin Cork. Now back to more Hannity.
Over Biden's mental fitness now for many years, and after yesterday's really damning report and disastrous press conference, more Republicans, they're speaking out. They're questioning whether or not Biden should be replaced on the 2024 ticket, and even Democrats know how much trouble Joe is in. Now, this morning, Democratic strategist Paul Begala admitted that Biden's only chance of winning is by using anti-Trump scare tactics. That's all they've been doing anyway. Take a look.
This is terrible for Democrats, and anybody with a functioning brain knows that. But here's what you do. Instead of calling a press conference and saying, I really am sharp, you attack the other guy. You know, Joe Biden gave the strategy in 2012. I remember he was vice president, and he said, don't compare us to the almighty, compare us to the alternative. So everything with Biden has to be not, I'm great, but the other guy's really damaging, dangerous, a threat.
Senator Rand Paul, he poked fun at Biden's gaffes yesterday with this post on X saying, quote, he's going to build a wall with Gaza and make Mexico pay for it. And boy, are they going to be confused. Anyway, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul joins us now. I mean, it's been transparent for a long time. The media mob, I don't even think they're in denial. I think they're just a bunch of liberal hacks that claim to be journalists that aren't journalists. So I think it's very transparent. But, you know, Newt just touched on something really important. This is dangerous now. It's officially dangerous. Our enemies read this report. They got a summary of this report this morning, and I could only imagine their reaction.
You know, it would be funny if it weren't tragic and if it weren't scary. Think about this. The bar for trying someone for competency is very, very low. Routinely in our courts, we do try people with a bare minimum of intelligence. They try to ask them if they know right from wrong. If you can discern right from wrong, you can actually be tried in most courts, even with limited intelligence. So you have to realize that they're judging our president to be below that very low standard of competence, that he couldn't go through a trial because people would perceive him as maybe unable to understand the difference between right and wrong, and with a memory so bad that he's basically not competent for trial. We've never had a president with that low a standard, and it isn't just tragic or funny. It's scary because, yes, we have a nuclear arsenal. Complicated decisions would have to be made within minutes if someone were attacking us. And yes, this does give our enemies a window into a situation that is very, very dangerous. And, you know, for the Democrats to say, oh, well, we're just going to ignore his incompetence to the level of not even be competent that he could be tried, and we're going to say, well, let's just attack the other guy. Sometimes political attacks work, but there have been so many attacks on Trump that, you know, he's probably the king of Teflon in the sense that so much of it bounces off. But this is going to stick to Biden, and I think he's going to have a difficult time running. They can try putting him in the basement again like they did during COVID. And frankly, that's about all they can do. They should take him off of the trail, put him in a basement, but we should not relent in pointing out that he can't even pass the competency test to be tried as an adult.
I mean, these are devastating comments that he had, and displayed significant limitations in memory. He didn't remember when he was vice president. He didn't know if it was I still vice president in 2009 and 2013, whatever year it was. And he doesn't know these things, but they did conclude that he willfully retained and disclosed classified materials. I don't think you get to have it both ways. I don't think you get to say, yeah, he definitely did this willfully, but because he's a cognitive mess and he's going to come off as a nice guy that's old with memory loss, that no jury will convict him, that's a way out. And I think Josh Hawley is right in that sense in saying either indict him or invoke the 25th Amendment. But I don't think you're going to get that out of this attorney general. I think he has been weaponized, that department, to such an extent. You'd never see an act of courage like that, ever.
Yeah, and I think it's important if we're talking about Biden and Trump, you know, both having classified records, but there's going to be a different standard. But it even goes beyond that. Equal protection under the law, when we have failed that in our country, when it didn't seem to be adhered to during the 1950s and 60s, or maybe before as well for African Americans, it led to civil strife in our country. And we got beyond that, but it was a very difficult time in our history, and we made the law better, and we have equal protection, I think, regardless of race. And I think we do a much better job than we ever did 50, 70 years ago. But now if you don't have equal justice under the law because of the shade of your ideology, it can be just as bad. There can be strife, there can be unrest, there can be civil discord. There can be a real problem in a country if this extends where only certain people are prosecuted and other people aren't. And people are seeing this. You know, look at January 6th. Many of the people who were prosecuted under January 6th had similar crimes to the women that chained themselves and writhed on the floor in the Hart office building protesting against Kavanaugh. They were trespassing. They were told to leave, didn't leave. And we've always treated trespassers like that as a form of speech, and their punishment was to be made to leave. Instead, with January 6th, the punishment was jail.
As your doctor, I'm going to urge you to take a slight sip of water, maybe have your own little Marco Rubio moment. Poor Marco will never play that down. It's unfair, but as an acting doctor on television, I say you might want to try Ricola for your throat. That's what I use, and it seems to work pretty well. But anyway, Senator, great to have you. Thanks for your analysis. Serious time for the country. When we come back, Karine Jean-Pierre has covered for Biden's cognitive decline for months, as pretty much everybody else has. Yesterday, she tried a new tactic. She tried to compare Biden to me? Really? This is good. All right, a pretty tough week for the White House communications team now as they desperately tried to fend off inquiries over Biden's, significant cognitive decline. First, there was Karine Jean-Pierre saying she was not even going to talk about it. Take a look.
How is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you, sir. We're going to go. Go ahead.
He said
Go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitt Romney.
Go ahead. You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there.
Then after a few more gaffes from Joe, including talking to more dead people, Karine tried to play them off as saying that it happens all the time to everybody, even Sean Hannity. What? Take a look.
You know, look, as it relates to the names and what he was trying to, say, look, many people, elected officials, many people, they can misspeak sometimes, right? And look, let me give you a couple of examples. On Sunday, Speaker Johnson said Iran instead of Israel. This happens. And Joe is not here. There are many times I call Joe from USA Today Michael. Also, Sean Hannity himself has said Jason Chaffetz when he met Matt Gaetz. I mean, it happens. It really happens.
Yeah. Also, Sean Hannity, he even had a moment where he mixed up people. I couldn't recall it. Maybe I'm getting more like Joe every day. I have no idea. So we looked up what was Karine Jean-Pierre referring to. Well, it turns out it's from a show in 2020. Take a look. Anyway, joining us now, we are joined by Congressman Matt Gaetz from the great state of Florida, the host of the Rubin Report, Dave Rubin. Oh, I'm sorry. Jason Chaffetz is now with us. I thought it was Matt Gaetz tonight. All right. I'm not throwing anyone on my team down the stairs here, but it's called a teleprompter error. They put the wrong name in the teleprompter. No, I'm not mad at anybody. Little lapses do happen to all of our memories. That's fine. But that's not what we're looking at when we see Joe Biden. You know, like Joe Biden, what he's been saying and doing and how bad this is. And, he can't remember, whether he's talking to people that lived a long time ago or in the present. I mean, this report is devastating, and it is so flagrant and so often that it is a big problem. He's the president of our country, but that's the best example they can come up with. I can come up with better examples where I screwed up. Better than that, they're clearly grasping at straws. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors Lisa Booth and Matt Gaetz is with us, as you can see on your screen. I'm sorry. That's Jason Chaffetz again. Well, Lisa, you're laughing. I mean, yeah, of course, everybody misspeaks occasionally. That's not what we're discussing here. That's not the cognitive decline we're referring to.
Well, and Sean, I'm pretty sure you're not falling off of stationary bikes or needing to be escorted by the Easter Bunny away from people. So those things aren't happening for you.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I love how Rachel
That's a good
Maddow was
one.
like, oh, well, he rides bikes. Well, he also falls off them while they're stationary. I guess one of my points of frustration with all of this is Joe Biden's current mental incapacitation does not exonerate the decades of corruption that are laid out in this report. And I think one of the biggest lies told in it is when Robert Hur says that Joe Biden is well-meaning. What is well-meaning about agents finding classified documents dating back to the 1970s, the 1980s, when he was a United States Senator? What is well-meaning about Joe Biden telling his ghostwriter that he has classified information and, I just don't want to turn it in? Right? So this isn't a one-off. This isn't a mistake. This is 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as vice president, intentionally and willfully mishandling classified information, and then having the audacity, the hypocrisy, the arrogance to go on 60 Minutes and condemn Donald Trump, knowing full well what he has done throughout his entire career. And then Donald Trump's the one facing up to 450 years, and Joe Biden's just going to get a pass.
That's a great point. Jason, one of the things I'd like to see out of this is they have, I guess, 5 hours of videotape of Joe Biden talking with the special counsel. I think Republicans in the House need to subpoena that, and I think the American people need to see that. So let them decide. Is that doable?
It's absolutely doable. If you're going to have the spokesperson, Ian Sams, come out and say that there was totally a misrepresentation of what happened, there's one way to clear it up, and that is to release the tapes. And that's what they should do. Chairman Jordan should call special counsel Hur to come testify so the Democrats can relive exactly what happened, so they can ask him their own questions. but they really should release the tape. Joe Biden can unilaterally do that. He should absolutely do that. And by the way, Sean, to Lisa's point, which was just spot on, there is no fact pattern where a United States senator takes classified information home. You're not to be in possession of it ever. There's no scenario in which that is legal, lawful, or anything else. And for it to be willful, he should have been prosecuted.
You see, I think Joe needs to be complied on turning over the tapes, and I don't think it should be him. I think it's the special counsel that they should mandate that he bring those tapes in, and that the American people should have an opportunity to see them. Do you see any obstacle to prevent that from happening?
They'll come up with some obstacle because it's Joe Biden. They don't exactly play by the rules. Since they're not going to prosecute him, there's nothing out there to prohibit that. They should be able to go get those tapes. And again, Joe Biden can put an end to this right now here today by saying, "Hey, what they said is wrong," and then they just go ahead and release them right now.
We'll give you the last word, Lisa Booth.
Yeah, I guess if you're Democrats, you get to bleach bit emails, you get to destroy evidence with hammers, your ghostwriter can delete the files, the audio recordings. That's what you get to do when you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, you face up to 91 different indictments and potentially 450 years in jail, specifically for Donald Trump's handling of these documents. But this is really devastating for Democrats politically. It validates Americans' concerns about his mental fitness. It gives Donald Trump fuel for saying, look, this is a witch hunt. Look what they're doing to me. Look what they're doing to Joe Biden. And then it also undermines Joe Biden's whole threat to democracy when he's the guy who has done this throughout 36 years in the Senate and then 8 as vice president. So I do think that they're spiraling right now because they realize that this is damning.
All right, Lisa Booth and Matt Gaetz, great to see you both. Sorry, just kidding, Jason. Thank you. All right, straight ahead. It is Super Bowl weekend. We're going to check in with the one, the only Stephen A. Smith. Now, we'll get his predictions for the big game, and we'll talk about Joe's cognitive state with my friend. Straight ahead.
Sink or swim. Let's get into it. Nick Kosher taking on Kelly O'Grady.
I'm swimming. I'm swimming. I don't know about you, but I'm swimming.
You have no idea how this thing is going to shake out.
It's going to be interesting.
Shake it off, though. The Super Bowl's this Sunday, and it's set to receive a record number of viewers. This may be because of Taylor Swift, maybe not. And just this week, this senator was on late night TV and revealed that they were a Swiftie. Is it Pocahontas or was it Bernie?
I'm going Liz.
I'm going. Oh, okay. We're already.
All right. Let's see what happens.
Off to it.
Taylor Swift won big at the Grammys last night. Yeah. Okay. Was that phase one of the Democrats' deep state plan for the Chiefs?
You bet. And all I can say to Donald Trump is, haters gotta hate, 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 hate.
Here's one thing you need to do before you buy anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch.
Yeah. Hey, Pocahontas a Chiefs fan. I never knew that would happen. All right, next up one, category Super Manning Bros. Everyone's getting pumped for the big game, including this Manning brother, who's going to be in a Bud Light Super Bowl.